6 three-pointers in a single quarter. 20 points when his team needed them most. Aaron Nesmith didn't just have a hot hand in the fourth quarter of Game 1, he rewrote the history books. What you're about to see isn't just another playoff comeback, it's the statistical equivalent of hitting the lottery while getting struck by lightning twice. Before Wednesday night, NBA teams trailing by 9 or more points in the final minute of a playoff game had a record of 0 and 1,414 since 1998. 0 wins, 1,414 losses, until the Pacers said, "Not today." This is the story of how the impossible became possible at Madison Square Garden. Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals. Knicks, Pacers, Madison Square Garden. The latest chapter in a rivalry that goes back decades. Spike Lee courtside, Celebrity Row packed, the atmosphere electric. But nobody, and I mean nobody, could have predicted how this one would end. Today, we're diving deep into exactly how the Pacers pulled off the impossible. From Aaron Nesmith's fourth quarter eruption to Tyrese Haliburton's clutch gene and everything in between. We'll break down the key stats, the crucial moments, the coaching decisions, and what this means for the rest of the series. So grab your snacks, settle in, and let's relive a game that will be talked about for years to come. To understand the magnitude of this comeback, we need to set the stage properly. The Knicks entered as slight favourites, with home court advantage and the momentum of their second-round victory over the Celtics. The Pacers, meanwhile, were riding high after taking down the Cavaliers, but facing the daunting task of opening on the road. From the jump, Jalen Brunson was in his bag. The Knicks point guard has been on an absolute tear this postseason, and Game 1 was no different. By halftime, he had the Garden rocking and the Knicks up by 7. Brunson was well on his way to another 30-piece, something he's made look routine in these playoffs. In fact, this would be his 18th 30-point playoff game as a Knick, tying Patrick Ewing's franchise record. The crazy part? Brunson's only played in 37 playoff games with New York. Ewing played in 135. That's efficiency, folks. Karl Anthony Towns was feasting inside as well. Cat dropped 33 and 10, giving the Knicks the inside-outside punch that's made them so dangerous. The Pacers weren't going away though. Tyrese Haliburton kept them within striking distance, despite the Knicks throwing everything but the kitchen sink at him defensively. They were forcing him to be a scorer rather than a facilitator, and Haliburton adjusted, putting up 23 through 3 quarters. Heading into the fourth, the Knicks led by just 3 points, 90-87. A close game, sure, but what happened next is why we watch basketball. Early in the fourth, disaster struck for the Knicks, or so it seemed at the time. Jalen Brunson picked up his 5th foul with plenty of time remaining and had to take a seat. This was it, the opening the Pacers needed, right? Wrong. In one of the most surprising twists of the game, the Knicks didn't just survive without Brunson, they thrived, ripping off a 16-1 run to balloon their lead to 17 points. Madison Square Garden was in a frenzy. The Knicks were rolling, the Pacers looked dead in the water. With just over 3 minutes remaining and down by 17, the win probability for Indiana was somewhere between not happening and absolutely no chance. But what happened next is why we watch basketball. Enter Aaron Nesmith. Now, Nesmith isn't exactly the first name you think of when you talk about the Pacers. He's a solid role player, a good defender, can knock down the open 3, but what he did in the fourth quarter wasn't just good, it was legendary. 6 three-pointers in the fourth quarter alone. 6, each one more crucial than the last. Each one breathing life back into the Pacers when they could have easily packed it in. Let's put this into perspective. Nesmith finished with 30 points, tying his career high. He hit 8 threes in total, setting a Pacers franchise playoff record. But the timing is what made this special. 20 of those points came in the fourth. With every 3, you could feel the energy shifting. The Garden crowd getting a little quieter. The Knicks players getting a little tighter. The impossible starting to seem possible. That's the shot that cut the lead to single digits and had the Pacers bench losing their minds. The momentum had completely shifted, and yet the best was still to come. According to the AP's Tim Reynolds, the Pacers scored 23 points in the final 3 minutes and 14 seconds of regulation time. That's the most by any team in the final 3:14 of a playoff game since 1997. Let that sink in. In a game where every possession is crucial, where defensive intensity is at its peak, the Pacers dropped 23 points in just over 3 minutes. But it wasn't just offense. The Pacers got stops when they needed them most. The Knicks, who had been so composed all game, suddenly couldn't buy a bucket. Their offense stagnated, the ball movement disappeared, the shot selection got questionable. With under a minute to go, the Knicks still led by 9 points with under a minute remaining. Remember that stat from earlier? Teams were 0 and 1,414 in that situation. The Knicks just needed to hit their free throws and make 1 or 2 more stops. But the Pacers kept coming. A 3 here, a quick 2 there, a defensive stop, another bucket. Suddenly, impossibly, the Pacers had a chance. Down by 2, final possession, clock winding down. What happened next made NBA history. Ball in Tyrese Haliburton's hands. The Knicks knew he was going to get it. Everyone in the building knew he was going to get it. Haliburton, guarded tightly, creates just enough separation with a step back. The shot goes up and, as the NBA.com live blog perfectly described it, hung in the air for what seemed like an eternity. Bang! Haliburton drills it at the buzzer. The Pacers bench erupts. Haliburton's celebrating like he just hit the game winner. But wait, after review, his foot was on the line. It's a 2, not a 3. Tie game. We're headed to overtime. Some players might have been deflated after thinking they'd won the game, only to find out they'd just tied it. Not Haliburton, not the Pacers. The look on their faces said it all. We've come this far, we're not losing now. But the Pacers weren't done yet. The overtime period was everything you'd expect after such a dramatic regulation finish. Back and forth, punch and counterpunch, neither team able to pull away. With 26.7 seconds left, Andrew Nembhard gave the Pacers a 1-point lead. The Knicks had one more chance to avoid the historic collapse. But in a poetic twist that you couldn't script any better, it was former Knick Obi Toppin who sealed the deal for Indiana. Toppin, who had spent the first 3 years of his career with New York before being traded to Indiana, grabbed an offensive rebound and threw down the dagger dunk that put the Pacers up for good. Final score, Pacers 138, Knicks 135. The impossible had happened. The Pacers had done it. Let's break down exactly how this happened. I cannot overstate how unprecedented this comeback was. Let me hit you with some stats that put it into perspective. Teams trailing by 9+ points in the final minute of a playoff game. 0 and 1,414 since 1998 before Wednesday. The Pacers are the first team in the play-by-play era to force overtime or win after trailing by at least 9 points in the final minute. 23 points in the final 3 minutes and 14 seconds of regulation is the most in a playoff game since 1997. This wasn't just a great comeback. It was statistically the most improbable comeback in modern NBA playoff history. The NBA world lost its collective mind on social media. Former players, analysts, fans, everyone was in disbelief. Caitlin Clark summed it up perfectly in her tweet. Pacers are the greatest comeback team I've ever seen. Even the most diehard Knicks fans couldn't believe what they'd witnessed. Madison Square Garden, which had been rocking just minutes earlier, fell into a stunned silence as the Pacers celebrated on the floor. Let's break down exactly how this happened. Beyond the obvious heroics from Nesmith and Haliburton, there were several key factors that made this comeback possible. First, Rick Carlisle's coaching adjustments were masterful. When the Knicks focused on taking away Haliburton's playmaking, Carlisle adjusted by letting him be more of a scorer. When Nesmith got hot, Carlisle kept running actions to get him open looks. Second, the Pacers' mental toughness cannot be overstated. Most teams down 17 in the fourth quarter on the road would start thinking about Game 2. Not Indiana. They kept fighting, kept believing, even when the odds were astronomically against them. Third, the Knicks' late-game execution left a lot to be desired. Their offense became stagnant, the ball movement disappeared, the shot selection got questionable. Tom Thibodeau, usually so good at making in-game adjustments, couldn't find an answer for Nesmith's hot hand. And finally, let's talk about the unsung heroes. Andrew Nembhard hit the go-ahead basket in overtime. Obi Toppin, facing his former team, made the decisive play. Pascal Siakam provided steady production throughout. Championship teams need these kind of contributions from their role players, especially in the biggest moments. So what does this mean for the series? Stealing Game 1 on the road is huge in any playoff series. Doing it in this fashion? That's a potential series definer. The Pacers now have home court advantage and all the momentum heading into Game 2. The psychological edge they've gained cannot be overstated. They now know, beyond any doubt, that they're never out of a game, no matter the deficit. For the Knicks, this is the kind of loss that can linger. They had Game 1 in the bag. They were up 17 in the fourth, up 9 with under a minute left, and they still lost. The big question is, how do they respond? Great teams use losses like this as fuel. They make adjustments and come back stronger. The Knicks have shown resilience throughout these playoffs, but this will be their biggest test yet. Game 2 becomes absolutely crucial now. If the Knicks can bounce back and even the series, this becomes a footnote, albeit a historic one. If the Pacers go up 2-0 heading back to Indianapolis, the Knicks could be in serious trouble. Here are some adjustments we could expect to see in Game 2. The Knicks will likely have a specific defensive plan for Nesmith, not allowing him the same open looks he got in Game 1. Expect better late-game execution from New York, with more structured offensive sets. The Pacers will try to get Brunson in foul trouble again, knowing how it altered the game flow, and both teams will emphasize closing out quarters stronger. No matter what happens next, Game 1 has set the stage for what could be an all-time great Eastern Conference Finals. What we witnessed in Game 1 wasn't just a great comeback, it was the statistical equivalent of seeing a unicorn riding a dinosaur while winning the lottery. Aaron Nesmith's fourth quarter eruption, 6 threes, 20 points when it mattered most, will go down as one of the greatest playoff performances by a role player in NBA history. The Pacers did the impossible. They defied the odds, the stats, the history books. They reminded us why we watch this beautiful game. Because on any given night, you might see something you've never seen before and may never see again. Game 2 is Friday night. Will the Pacers take a commanding 2-0 lead, or will the Knicks bounce back and even the series? Either way, it's going to be must-see TV. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit that like button, subscribe, and if you haven't already, let me know in the comments what you thought of this historic comeback. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.